I have a special video interview for you today. So, my name's Joe Brown. I'm a realtor with Century 21, list with Beggins, located in South Tampa. So, again, list with Beggins in South Tampa. Well, Beggins, our broker is Craig Beggins, but Craig's brother is Jeff Beggins, and Jeff is a partner in Beggins Enterprises and is located at Madeira Beach. And the beaches in this area have just really been hit hard by the hurricanes. And Jeff has put a lot of information out on Facebook, helping people, helping the community with storm recovery. And Jeff was so gracious to hop on a Zoom call that I recorded, and that is the video I'm going to share with you today. And I'll tell you up front, it's a longer interview, so this video is longer than my usual videos. But please, the information is so important. So please watch through to the end, and I'll come back at the end to wrap up, okay? So let's cut to the interview with Jeff Beggins. So, Jeff, this area has been hit recently by two big storms. And you're over at the beaches, and the beaches just got wiped out with Helene. So just real quick, talk about the difference between the flood policy and FEMA, right? So if people are seeking relief from flood or FEMA, where do they go?
All right. All right, Joe, thanks for having me on, everybody. Yeah, so I'm over in Madeira, and of course we've got offices. One of the broker owners of the Century 21 offices, Beggins, BE3, and we got offices all over Miami, Pensacola, Panama City, the whole state of Florida now. And the beaches are used to getting hit. Sarasota is used to getting hit, or Fort Myers people are used to getting hit. But for hitting in South Tampa, we get floods when it rains, right? But no one really expected this to come out the way that it hit. So when things come unexpectedly, a lot of people react the way they shouldn't be reacting. And what I'm seeing here in all of Tampa Bay is people doing really silly things with their properties, right? So first thing to do, first and foremost, the advice is take a breath, right? And I can't say relax because no one's relaxed, but take a breath and pause, right? Hit the pause button, because you're not dying, right? You have probably food. If you don't, let us know. You're going to be okay, right? So don't be doing knee-jerk emotional reactions and selling houses. People are doing some really, really dumb things right now, Joe, and we don't like seeing it. They're thinking the sky is falling. Oh my God, the values are going to crash. No, they're not, right? You can look at history repeats itself. 12, 14 months after every impact, things get back to where they were before, and we'll be back. Right. So right now, it's like you never sell. If you don't lose any money if you don't sell a stock when the market corrects, right? If you get a dip in the stock market, if you panic and you sell, you lost money, right? If you panicked and you didn't sell, you were pissed, you were freaked out, but it recovered and it probably went higher than it was before it fell, and you didn't lose anything except stress yourself out, right? So if you're fortunate and you know that you're alive, and some people aren't, right? So we already win. We're good. So let's talk about that first and foremost, right? So now you figure out, what do I do now? You got a piece of property, a valuable piece of property, and a beautiful piece of real estate, and an unbelievably desirable area, and it's not going to change. And that hasn't changed, and it's not going to change, and it will continue to become more desirable and nicer and more valuable, right? So let's start with that. So right now, you're in a recovery zone. A lot of people say, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore, I want to sell. That's a different story. It's a different conversation. If you definitely do want to sell, pause it out and figure it out. So right now you got to figure out, how am I going to recover? So you've got options. Do you have insurance or do you not have insurance? There's some of both. There's pros and cons to both, right? There really are. I was just talking to the mayor of my city right just before I got on this one, and FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Association, right? It's not good, right? That is designed for disaster relief, right? And they come in when areas are hit and they do disaster cleanup. I'm looking at dump truck after dump truck after front end loader after front end loader just cruising up and down Gulf Boulevard right now. This is FEMA, right? Disaster mitigation. You got it there too in South Tampa. There's a lot of cleanup going. So FEMA is different than your flood insurance, right? You have flood insurance or you don't have flood insurance. If you do have flood insurance, you've got a claim, right? Most likely we had water up into the middle of your house. That's a pretty good claim, right? It's hard to deny that you had flood. First, there's no myth about don't say the word flood, call rising wind driven rain. No, it's pretty simple. You got a scum line in your house from where the water stopped. It's a flood, right? So forget about all those myths. So then now what you do? So now you got to go through a couple different steps, right? You got to figure out what do I do? When do I do it? How do I do it? And you got to be careful because a lot of people are ripping drywall, which is okay. But did you get a demo permit? If you didn't get a demo permit, you may want to get a demo permit. I'm not the guy that says what you really need to do, but I'm telling you, you probably ought to get a demo permit. They're not charging for them. I don't think they're charging for them there either. But you have to get it done so it gets inspected. So when you put it back, it's known to be done right. So it's done right, right? So that's another question. Why? Different topic since we're talking about FEMA, let's talk about FEMA because I don't think a lot of people understand. When the city of Tampa negotiated with FEMA and their flood insurance rates and disaster recovery contracts, which is what they do, FEMA says, hey, if you want us to support you in a disaster, you need to do these following things for us. And if you remain FEMA compliant, we'll come there and help you when you have a disaster. When you don't do what we say and you don't become FEMA compliant, we're not helping you. Figure it out. Ask Port Charlotte how that worked out for them, right? So when you don't become FEMA compliant, you don't get the help. And it's millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars of disaster relief. I mean, it's food, it's water, it's ice, it's bathrooms, it's laundry facilities, it's trucks, it's front end loaders. You can go on and on and on about the recovery and the millions of dollars of resources that get poured in from FEMA. Plus, it keeps your flood insurance rates lower, right? If you don't do the things that FEMA says that they want you to do and you're not FEMA compliant, your flood insurance have a higher rate and you don't get the disaster assistance. So what do you think the cities are going to want to do?
Be FEMA
They're going to
compliant.
want to be FEMA compliant, right? Because it's good for the greater good, if you will, to do that. The problem is when you have that, I'll give you the example here because it's very similar there too. I think, should we come back there? Okay. So come back. So I had a call come in. So if you look at here, the rules are anything over $500 has to have a permit, everything, because they keep track of it. There's a look back period. And then when they come in and they assessed your home, they're going to make sure you did everything with a permit. Everything that was done in your home over $500 has to be done with a permit and you're ready to go. Right. And if it's not, you're going to have problems because we're having issues here. You're having issues there. We're having issues everywhere with the 50% rule. And the 50% rule, that is a long answer to your question, but I think it's all relevant.
That's
The
okay.
50%, the 50% rule is not just a FEMA rule, it's a Florida building code rule, right? So if you have more than 50% of the value of the structure in damage, it's not allowed to be rebuilt. And we're going to have a lot of problems. People don't understand the problems they're about to have because it's working its way through the process right now. Everyone thinks, hey, Joe, I got $250,000 flood policy. I got flooded. Can't wait to get my check. And I'm going to sell my lot to a builder. And that's good. I'm wanting to move to Chicago anyway. I'm out of here. Right. So how many times you heard that story? However, it's not going to really work out that way. I was just talking to somebody, same situation there. This is a house that was worth about $1.4 million pre-storm, right? And right now it flooded. We had about 6 feet of water in this specific home. The land, as in South Tampa, the land is in the land. The value's in the land, right? So of that structure, this example was $77,000, right? Of
Or
the
the structure.
value was the structure. Now, that's not right, but it's what the FEMA letter says. It's $77,000 is the value of the structure, which means she can put in half of $77,000 back in renovations. And if she spends a penny over that, She's not going to be able to get a permit to do anything, not to put drywall back, not to do flooring, not to do anything. The house is going to be rendered a tear down. And the money that comes from the flood insurance is going to go towards the rebuild of the home or to the pay off the mortgage because there's a mortgage owed on the property still. Right. So there's a lot of problems coming on here. So FEMA / flood insurance is a whole different animals, right? FEMA is in charge right now because they make the rules, and the 50% rule is not just FEMA, it is Florida Building Code. So we all need to really pay attention to this one. Now, I'll anticipate a follow-up question on that one. And what do you do? Can you play with that number at all? No, because it's the number, it is what it is with the data that FEMA has. Now, you can give FEMA different data, right? For example, you go get an appraisal on your home, an independent FEMA approved appraisal that can say, hey, I know you think my house is only worth $120,000. However, what that didn't take into consideration is the $200,000 remodel I did last year, right? With a permit and this, that, and the other. Here's my independent appraisal. And this is going to show that my home really has a value of $280,000. So therefore, please give me $140,000 to do my renovation, right? And that's for somebody who wants to do the renovation. Now, there are a lot of people that says, I don't want to do a renovation anymore. I don't want to be on ground level anymore. I am in an area that's prone to flooding and I'm done, right? I want to build up. So if that's the strategy, then what do you want to do? You want to not get over that number, right? Or you want to get over that number. So you want to keep that number as low as possible. With the FEMA number, you really don't want to get an appraisal to bring your price up a lot more. Because if you have that lower number, it's easier to cross that threshold and it's going to be a non-able to be renovated home there. So
Right.
there's about 87 answers to one of your questions.
Yeah. Well, however, I was going to ask about the FEMA 50% rule. Now, does the FEMA 50% rule only apply to those homes in a flood zone?
50% is Florida building code. It's a Florida building
Uh,
code rule.
Anywhere in
It's not
Florida?
a flood. It's not a flood related issue. It's a 50% disaster, right? So if anything happens to your home greater than 50%, then your municipality is going to have that ultimate control. But that's the intent is no, it's not just flood.
Okay. Uh, so if somebody has a flood policy, does that flood policy trump the FEMA funds?
If you have a flood policy, your claim is with your flood insurance company. It's not with FEMA, right?
Right.
You're not going to go get a FEMA payment because they're going to say, wait a second, you have flood insurance, go to your flood insurance carrier.
Right.
Right. So it's not like you're going to go double deck and get a FEMA claim and then your flood insurance. Your flood insurance is going to carry you up to the max of $250,000 of the structure if the structure is worth $250,000, and if it's maxed out to that total 250 number, then you can get up to that number. But if you have a $87,000 is the price to renovate your house, you're only going to get the 87,000. You're not going to get the $250,000 check.
Okay.
I think that's another misconception.
Let to take the example, and you mentioned the people saying, "Okay, I'm done. I'm moving. Just buy my house for the land value." So I know that's going to be a suppressed price, but I'm also going to have money from my insurance claim. Can you address that issue?
A lot of people are going to do that, right? But so that's definitely what people are going to do. They're going to take their claim. And now that's going to be an issue because when you get a FEMA claim, there's a couple stipulations that go with that. The person you sell the home to is going to always have to have flood insurance on the property, right?
Right.
Which is part of the deal too. So it's not that they shouldn't, they should anyway if they're in a flood zone, but it does create a situation for those who may not want it. Because as you know, there's a lot of people that pay cash for homes and they self-insure and they're okay with that risk tolerance on their own and they do that. So if somebody's paying cash and wants to self-insure and they buy a home that's got a FEMA claim paid on it, that FEMA claim was paid to the property to make it more FEMA compliant. So they're going to expect that home to be insured going forward for the life of the property.
But so you're saying FEMA, but would the same be true if it's through the National Flood Insurance Program?
That's that's
Yeah.
yeah, they're interrelated on that. So I'm
Okay.
not going to get too much. I'm not a licensed flood
Yeah.
insurance agent. I'm just telling you the realistic stuff that we're dealing with here and
So,
Florida real estate.
so there was talk this morning on the morning meeting just about insurance adjusters and using a public adjuster. So what's the difference? What's the benefit of a public adjuster?
You know, depends on who you ask, right? The insurance carriers are saying, Joe, let me come out. We're going to take care of you, man. We'll be fair and we'll give you as much as is warranted. And the private adjuster is going to say, wait a second, they work for them, not you. They're not going to offer any more than they have to. And there's probably a lot more than I could probably get for you. Hire me, right? Because I get paid a commission in essence of 10% during a natural disaster, and they get 10% of the award of what they win from the insurance company. So basically, you're hiring somebody to handle the details and the fight for you, to carry that fight out. So with flood policies, so a lot argue that it's pretty cut and dry. The water lines up to here. That's the damage is everything there below. It's pretty self-explanatory. They're not really fighting it too much. Other people say, you know what, it's worth it to me. I don't have the time. I'm not going to spend the time. It's really another job. And I'm going to hire an adjuster and I don't care to pay 10%. I'm happy to pay 10% because I think they'll get me more than 10% of what I would have gotten on my own. So that's really kind of your own gut feeling on how to do that. A lot of insurance guys say, give us a chance. I think we're going to be fair. If you don't think we're fair, then go ahead and hire a private adjuster if you want. So once you get that original offer from your insurance carrier, doesn't mean you have to take that. Then you could, if you think that there's some problems with that response, you can hire a private adjuster then. Now the private adjusters don't like that because they get 10% of the claim. But if you get them after the fact, if they offered you 100 and they get you up to 150, they're only going to get paid on the delta between 100 and 150, which they'd much rather have been in the middle, the beginning, so they can get the bigger check. Right. So you just got to look at it from all angles of what they actually want. So I personally have private adjusters working on a lot of my properties because I don't really have the time to deal with it on that one.
Right.
So it depends if you're in that. It's time is money too, and I got other stuff to do with that time that the insurance adjuster is going to spend doing that stuff for me. So that's really kind of your judgment call on whether you think they're worth it.
Uh, so you've done a lot on Facebook, and I've reposted some of your Facebook posts. And it goes back to your first comment about take a breath, but don't relax, but just take a breath, take a pause, and that there are some desperate people making some bad decisions, right? And there are a lot of scams
100.
out there. So can you just share some of the scams and what people need to watch for?
Sure. I'll tell you the one freshest one from just last night. So a friend called, I was calling a friend, somebody in the city that reached out because they have been very vocal about what's going on and said, hey, here's my situation. I just got this offer. I'm excited about it. I said, cool, tell me about it. And they said, well, it was for this amount of money, which was, arguably a little low, but they just were done. They wanted to get out. And I said, I always tell people, don't sell your real estate ever. It's the best real estate. It's the best investment you've ever made in your life, held long term, unless you have another reason, another use for the money. If you have another use for the money, you want the money, take the money. Said you're going to get time or you're going to get money. You're not going to get both. You're either going to, if you want a lot of money, it's going to take you a lot of time. Right? If you want money quick, you're going to get a little amount of money. Right? That's kind of the way the world works. So you got to figure out what's good for you. In her specific situation, she wanted the money now. Right? So she's like, "Yeah, I got an offer. It's pretty solid number. It's an all cash, as is sale, closes in 30 days. I'm stoked." And I said, on the surface, it sounds good. If that works, if that price works for you, I think it's a little low, but if you're happy with that and it gets you out of here, how about it? And I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you shoot it over to me? Let me just take a look at it to see if anything just jumps out. She goes, no problem. I said, I don't want a penny. Just want to help you. Just like you, Joe, you've been around multiple generations of families there in South Tampa and you love helping people. Right. So they're going to reach out and say, hey, Joe, take a look at this offer. So I decided I did. I said, Jeff, take a look at the offer. So I looked at it and I said, okay, it's so and so LLC. So I open up Sunbiz and it's an inactive LLC. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting red flag, right? Then I look at the deposit and there's $1,000 in escrow not in escrow, promised to be put in escrow 5 days from effective date. Another red flag. And it's all cash, but there's no proof of funds where the money's coming from. As you know, when you scroll down the contract, there's a couple little secret boxes like, can you assign the contract, yes or no, or maybe, right? And so this was a yes, I can assign. And then there's an inspection period, which if it's left blank, it looks like no harm, no foul. But by leaving it blank, it defaults into 15 days, right? So I'm like, man. So I call her back and I say, hey, look, here's the short version of it. It's a bullshit offer. And it's got no teeth. I highly recommend you don't take it. Do what you want to do. I'm not your agent in this specific case. I'm your friend, but it's a bullshit LLC. They don't have, it's not even formed. It's not even active. There's no access to who actually this person is because of that. We don't know anybody to have recourse against. There's no money down, and maybe $1,000. People walk away from that anyway. There's 15 days complete free look during their inspection period, right? And it's assignable. So there's nobody even on the hook, and they have the right to flip it to somebody else. They have 15 days to do that. Then they can walk away for any reason. And worst case, they only have $1,000 in escrow, which they can walk away from. So in essence, they tied up your property to try to sell it to somebody else in the next 30 days is what they did. And if they can't, they lost nothing, right? Especially over the next 15 days, they lost absolutely nothing because they could cancel for any reason they want. But it has this contract. She was like, whoa, I didn't know any of that. I said, no, of course you didn't, because you don't have anybody representing you, right? I'm happy to look at it for you, but that's what happened. So, but on the surface, Joe, they were stoked, right? I got an all cash, good offer, close in 30 days as is. That's the highlight reel. And when you dig deeper, you realize that's not good at all, right? So that's what's happening a lot. You've got all these people coming in, and they call me, hey, I got this property tied up. You guys want to sell it? You any buyers for it? Like I call them scum sucking vultures, right? It drives me crazy because what they're doing is they're taking your equity, right? And that pisses me off. It's yours, right? You worked hard to buy that house, to save for that house. Maybe it was in your family. Maybe it's a legacy property. Somebody worked really hard to buy that piece of property. Why are you going to give this jackass, pardon, I get passionate about it, who just tied up your property for 30 days with no money to try to flip it for an extra 25, 50, or 100 grand? Why should he get the 100 grand that should be yours, or the 50 grand? It's not right. Right. So I see that a lot, especially right now. So when you're seeing an LLC buyer, they're not a real person, right? They're most likely, I shouldn't say that all the time because I buy stuff in LLCs, but in this type of situation, there's a lot of people just looking around to tie things up and very loosely to flip it out. So talk with Joe. You're obviously in his world. You're friends with Joe. He's obviously trusted by multiple, like tens of thousands of people that you've taught and been around in the education system forever. So everybody knows, likes, and trusts you. So run them by Joe, right? And just say, hey, does this look real? And he knows, he's an expert. He's amazing at real estate. And he'll tell you whether it's real or not. So that's one of them.
So
That's the
Jeff,
biggest one I'm seeing right now. Yeah.
I'll share a story with you. So a friend of mine, same thing. His house got flooded, and he received an offer. He called me, said, "I'm so excited. It's quick close, all cash, at a number he really liked, uh, but it was on the LLC's own contract." I said, "Do me a favor,
Yep.
send it to me." Same thing, $1,000 down, assignable. I said, "You know what? Let's see if these people are really serious, and let's do a reverse contract." So I used the Florida as is contract, uh, and because they were offering cash, I said 100,000 down, a 5-day close, no inspection period, and yes, you
Yep.
can assign, but can't be released from liability. I said, if
Beautiful.
they're serious, let's do it. That was not accepted. It's
Yeah. No, that's right. No, because there's so many people, Joe, they go to these little seminars, how to buy houses with no money down and how to wholesale and flipper. There's all kinds of names for it, right? And it's just that's what people are doing. And if they make 5 grand a house or 10 grand a house, that's a pretty good paycheck, right? So
right.
I mean, I don't blame them for making that their what they're due to feed their families, but most of the time we protect our clients, right? And we protect people who own the real estate, and it's just not right what people are doing. So the other things you're seeing are these assignable the assignable contracts. Anything that's assignable, you really need to have somebody look at, guys. I mean, look at us, look at the title company, ask Joe. And we're not going to ask, you're not going to charge you a penny, right? To take a look and get some advice, right? You're our friends. So figure out what's going on with this one, because what's the point? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to save, right? Get somebody to look at this stuff for you. It doesn't make any sense. So assignables, because they can put it under contract. And I got another guy that tracked me down and he said, "Hey man, I'm buying a bunch of properties." I said, "How are you buying them?" He goes, I'm putting them under contract and saying, "Hey, you're going to sell it. Let me just come in and sell it. I'm going to net you, right, Joe? I'll make sure if I got you 340 grand for your house, would you be happy with that?" And let's say you said, "Sure, right, I'll get 340. Okay, good. Well, then sign this, right? I'm going to make sure that you get 340. I'm going to go to work. I might sell it to somebody else. I'm going to be kind of your in between, and I'm the guy, right? But I'll make sure you get 340. If I make a little bit extra, that's on me. But if you're good with that, I'm happy." And then they put it under contract, and their contract says that they have the right to market it and do all the stuff they do. They actually come to like a real estate company and said, "Hey, I got this property. I've got the rights to sell it. Would you market it for me so I could see if I could find a buyer? Here's my contract. I'm allowed to do this. And would you let me flip it?" Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. But my question to you is, why the hell would you do it? It,
Right.
it doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you let somebody else step in the middle of a transaction to deal, quote unquote, deal with it, to accept a net number that you may or may not get? And these guys, when you read their contracts, there's no harm. They just walk away, right? If they can't get it done, they just walk away. So what do? They used you. They wasted all your time. They took your hard-earned asset to try to go take your equity. Why wouldn't you just hire Joe to put it on the market and actually find somebody real? It doesn't make any sense, right? I don't understand that segment of the market. It doesn't make any logical sense why a seller would allow a wholesaler to get in the way to try to sell the property for them, right? It doesn't make any sense, except for they don't know that that's what the person's doing. They sign a contract and it sounds like, "Man, I'm going to buy your house. I need about 45 days, right? And then here's the contract, sign it." And then they don't say the rest of the story, which gives them the right to sell it to somebody else, and they're okay with their net number. So you really got to be careful and seeing the documents. You got to have an attorney. You got to have Joe look at it, whatever you need to do to take a look at the stuff. So that's the other one you're seeing a lot of. So assignables, fake LLCs, or LLCs to be formed, plus this. And then, we'll get into the next one we're going to start seeing is, we'll do another topic, probably another podcast later, on the subject twos, because unfortunately there's going to be some losers in this game, Joe, and you and I both know it. There's going to be a lot of people that are going across that 50% rebuild number, and they're not going to be able to rebuild their homes. The city will physically not be allowed to issue them a permit to rebuild, because the price to rebuild will be greater than 50% of the applied value of the structure. Now, it's happening. It hasn't really happened at scale yet, but it's coming. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be sitting there thinking they're going to be able to rebuild their house and put the new drywall back, and they've already hired the contractors ready to go. They're not going to get their permit, right? And they're not going to be able to rebuild, and they got a mortgage, and the mortgage is for more than the land value, and they're going to be upside down. And it's coming. And I hate that it's coming. I really wish it was coming. If I could do anything to stop it from coming, I would, but I can't. And it's coming. So when that comes, you're going to need help. And we've got the different attorneys to walk in and help negotiate with your bank and to keep you out of foreclosures. And I hate that we're even having this conversation. It really, really, really emotionally gets me that it's going to happen, and on the wake of a disaster, going to hurt a lot of people, but it's going to happen. So in the event that does happen, reach out immediately to Joe or to us, and we'll see what can we do to help you. We've done this thousands of times, unfortunately, and we know what to do. So when it comes to that aspect, there's going to be a lot of unknown. There's going to be an emotional flood, pardon the pun, right, on what's going on around the marketplaces. So this is just phase one, guys, of what's happening. This is going to take several months to years to sort itself out. And there's going to be some winners. There's going to be some losers. We just don't want you to be on the loser side, right? On things you can control. Now, you can't control FEMA values. You can't control mortgage values. That's just going to be the way that they're going to play out. But you can control avoiding the scum sucking vultures, right? Because your property is worth more, especially if they're pressuring you. "Hey, I need an answer. I got limited funds. I got cash. I need to do it. I can close it this weekend." All the pressure stuff you're going to hear, there's something wrong, right? Reach out, call Joe. right? And call us, whatever we can do to help you on that one. So that's really the message right now during this phase one that we're in right now. And there's a lot of phases to come, but the short answer right now is relax.
Yeah. Jeff, thank you so much. I know you were extremely busy over at the beaches. So thank you so much for taking time today.
No, I'm proud to do that, Joe. You know, we love you. You're a fantastic agent, great addition. You've got such a huge reach there in that whole South Tampa market. I mean, you taught pretty much everybody who lives there and their kids and their families, and you reached into their educational system somewhere along the way. So, and I know people really love you and trust you as well. So I'm proud to do that with you. And if I could be of any help, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Bye.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Wow. That, I tell you, Jeff is such a resource of information. And I hope what you got was his passion, right? His passion to help the community. And I'll tell you, it's just not Jeff's passion. It is the passion of Beggins Enterprises. We are here to help the community. Jeff mentioned my time in education. And for 35 years, I've been about helping the community, both as a teacher and as a school principal, helping the community, serving the community. That's our passion. That's my passion. So I just want to highlight some points Jeff made. Number one, breathe, take a pause. And Jeff says you really can't relax, right, because of everything going on. But take a pause, right? A lot of people are frantic right now. Take a pause. In time, it'll be okay. Property values right now are depressed, right? Because homes are in disarray. You're not going to find a lot of buyers wanting to buy in some areas. However, we think in about a year and a half to 2 years, property values should come back, right? That's the hope. So if you're able to play the long game and wait it out, we'll be okay. Point number three is it has taken years for you to build the equity in your home, both through the payments you've made, lowering the principal, but also in the appreciation of the property. So it's taken years to build that equity. Just don't give it away by making a desperate decision. There are a lot of scams out there, and Jeff talked about a couple of these scams. The right to assign a policy, which means I give you a policy, I give you a contract that I'm going to buy your house, but I have the right to assign that policy, that contract to somebody else. So I may offer to buy your house for X, and I have a period of time, 2 weeks, to find somebody else that will pay X plus 20,000. And if I can find that person, I'm going to buy your house for X. They're going to buy it for me for $20,000 more, and I pocket the difference. If I can't find somebody to pay more, I cancel the contract with you. So here you think you have a contract to buy your house when really you don't. You've just offered somebody else to find a buyer for you. Don't do that. Be cautious. Use us as your trusted advisor, right? So if people approach you wanting to buy your house as is, cash, quick close, whatever, sometimes things are too good to be true. Reach out to me. I shared a story in my interview with Jeff of what I did for another couple. Please reach out. There's no cost, no obligation. Just say, Joe, will you look at this for me? Okay. Jeff talked about the FEMA 50% rule. That's really going to get a lot of people. I'll put a link to a video I did a couple weeks ago where I talk about the 50% rule and how you can figure out the value of your structure. So anyway, Jeff, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for sticking around through the whole thing. reach out to me. Go to my website, joebrownc21.com, has my contact information. I am here to help you, to help the community. So until next week, take care.